Every meal you eat, every grocery store shelf you browse, is shaped by a hidden battle for your control. We're not talking about farmers or even giant corporations. What if I told you that our global food supply was operated by a few, almost completely unseen? Have you ever wondered why certain foods seem to always be available and others seem to vanish overnight? I assume that it was mostly climate or economics. The truth is, your access to food and its very price is designed by an intricate web of power dynamics that most people don't even realize exists. Today, we're going to expose who really controls the global food chain and why that matters so much to you. Most of us walk into a grocery store and assume we have unlimited options. There's endless shelves, dozens of brands for things as simple as eggs, milk, bread. But the reality is that in many food categories, there are 4 companies that control 70 to 90% of the market. In the United States, just 4 companies dominate beef processing, and the same is true for pork, poultry, fish, grain trading. Globally, companies like Cargill, Archer Daniels, Midland, Bunge, and Louis Dreyfus quietly control the majority of the world's grain flows. And you've probably never bought a product with their name on it, because that's kind of the point. And this concentration didn't happen by accident. In the early 20th century, food production was largely local. Farmers sold to their nearby markets, supply chains were short, power was diffuse. But as industrial agriculture expanded, mergers became normalized, and efficiency became the overriding goal. So food systems began to centralize. And what started as a way to reduce costs slowly became a way to control access. And by the late 20th century, the global food system had transformed into a highly consolidated network where a handful of firms sat at the choke points, not just producing food. They were deciding where it goes, when it moves, at what price. And choice, it turns out, is often an illusion. Control over food doesn't just come from ownership. It comes from policy. Agriculture giants spend hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying governments around the world. In the United States alone, agribusinesses is one of the most powerful lobbying forces in Washington. And these efforts shape everything from farm subsidies to trade agreements to environmental regulations. Policies that are framed as supporting farmers often just end up favoring the largest producers. Subsidy systems reward the scale of those producers. Compliance costs crush small operations, and the trade rules prioritize export volume over local resilience. And the result of this is a system where being big isn't just an advantage, it's a requirement for survival. New entrants to the food market face massive barriers. Independent farmers are pressured into contracts that strip away all their autonomy. And governments, which are increasingly reliant on stable food prices to avoid unrest, start aligning themselves with the corporation that's controlling the supply. So food becomes a political infrastructure, and once that happens, control over food becomes a form of leverage. Food is no longer just grown and eaten. It's traded on, industrialized, speculated on, and financialized. Major agriculture firms don't just sell crops. They operate deep within commodity markets, derivatives, and future contracts. And these financial instruments were originally designed to reduce the risk for farmers, but today they've just become tools for profit extraction and narrative control. By influence expectations about scarcity or surplus, large players can move markets without ever touching a field. A drought rumor, a shipping delay, a geopolitical headline. Prices spike, panic spreads, and the profit follows. After 2020, this dynamic became impossible to ignore. Global disruptions revealed just how sensitive food prices are to financial speculation, and grain prices surged even when harvests were adequate. Fertilizer prices exploded due to a concentrated supply, and these countries dependent on imports felt this pressure immediately. Food insecurity, in many cases, wasn't caused by a lack of food, but by who controlled the story of the supply. Even if food is grown, it still has to move. And this is where another layer of control emerges: the distribution of the food. A small number of logistics firms control shipping routes, storage facilities, ports, and processing plants. If one link breaks, entire regions feel it. And when those links are privately owned, decisions are made based on profitability, not necessity. Consider how many steps your food takes before it reaches you. Farms sell to processors, processors sell to distributors, distributors sell to retailers. At each step, ownership narrows. Distribution bottlenecks mean that food can exist and still be inaccessible. The rise of e-commerce has only intensified this, because the platforms that control delivery networks are increasingly influential on what products are visible, affordable, and prioritized. Their algorithms decide which food moves faster, and their warehouses decide which regions get served first. So food becomes data, and data becomes power. So what does a different system look like? Around the world, alternatives are quietly emerging. Localized food networks, direct-to-consumer models, cooperative ownership structures, policies that are focused on antitrust enforcement rather than consolidation. These approaches don't promise abundance without cost, but they do offer resilience. Some governments are experimenting with breaking up monopolistic structures. Others are investing in regional food security rather than global dependence. Consumers, too, they're beginning to ask harder questions about where their food comes from and who benefits from its journey. But change is not going to come from policy or one boycott. It's going to come from understanding the system first. Because once you see how power flows through food, you realize something that's very important. Control over food isn't just about eating. It's about stability. And who you want to decide has that control over your life. The global food supply chain doesn't look the way it does because it had to. It looks this way because it was built, piece by piece, through decisions that prioritized efficiency, profit, and control over resilience and transparency. Every meal is the end result of those decisions. And the more we understand the unseen forces behind them, the harder it becomes to pretend that the system is neutral. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, please check out some of our other videos, leave a comment below, and I hope to see you again on The Hidden Media.